Right, so I'll be talking about Muslims in the media, and I think a good place to start would be to look at this poll. This is YouGov stats conducted in 2002, and it was asked to non-Muslims or the British public how much they actually knew about Islam. 64% actually said not very much, and this was actually conducted after 9/11. 25% said a fair amount. Now, the next question is, where did they find out this information? TV and newspaper, papers rather, came at 66%. The majority of the people, the British public, found out about Islam via these channels. Reading books about religion only amounted to 6%, and Muslim friends was 9%, and that's a bit of a shame for us, really. It just shows what state we're in. So, was that a good means for people to find out about Islam? Well, sadly not. A report from the Greater London Authority, published in November 2007, found that the media in the UK are overwhelmingly negative about Muslims. 1 week in May 2006 was chosen for a detailed scrutiny, and out of 352 articles referring to Muslims, only 4% were judged to be positive. Journalist Laura Smith, who conducted the research for 2 chapters of the report, said, "What became clear during our research was that the well-worn saying, 'never let the facts get in the way of a good story,' applied disproportionately to stories that would be given a Muslim slant. Basic journalistic standards such as interviewing those people involved and checking facts simply went out the window. Serious factual inaccuracies, distortions were the result." So let's have a look at some of these examples. Recent stories and Islam and Muslims. The salon sued Muslim hairdresser in headscarf. Some of those that aren't familiar with this story, a Muslim lady who wears a headscarf was refused a position at a salon. Now, and she actually took them to court and won. Now, this is blatant discrimination. And it would be, if we could draw an analogy, it would be like saying that bald men should not be barbers. But the only reason that we can't see what this story is for what it is because the actual article has an undertone. And the undertone is what? It's those Muslims putting these excessive demands on our British public, and look at them going at it again. And that's why we can't see the story for what it really is. Muslim prisoners sue for millions after they were offered ham sandwiches for Ramadan. Given the fact that this is the Daily Mail, it's probably wise to appreciate that it's slightly exaggerated. Muslim cabbie bans guide dog. Now, this is a cocktail of disaster. Muslims are waging war against man's best friend. Now, the thing about this story, I don't know if anyone is aware, but does anyone know where this actual incident happened? Was it London? Birmingham? Manchester? Anywhere else? No. It actually happened in a remote part in the United States. Did you know that? No. So what the hell is this story doing on the front page of the Evening Standard? The reason for that is that these kind of hardline Muslim titles or slogans that say sell newspapers, and we have these tabloids have this desire to put these everywhere and anywhere. Yes, and we know about the terrible Danish cartoon protests. A small minority of individuals went out, raving loonies, yes, but what happened? The entire 2 million population of the British public were considered extremists, violent, and incapable of having a peaceful demonstration. But hold on, but when we look at the media coverage of yesterday's protest in Luton, does anyone know that actually happened yesterday? No, funny that. There was a striking contrast. We have low coverage in the media, despite the fact that there are 9 arrests, violent clashes with the police. Riot police were invited, truncheons were drawn, but no one's heard of this. Yes, political correctness. Again, Muslims are making these excessive demands. They want to clamp down on freedom of speech. They don't want a critical analysis of Islam. And my favourite one, the slur in Islam, Brit teacher faces lashes from the Sun. Now, What they didn't mention is that I actually went to a demonstration outside the Sudanese government to actually let her be released, but there was no sign of that. Although I do have to admit that I have beaten up a few teddy bears, but it was not in the name of Islam. The Sharia law in the UK is unavoidable. Dun, dun, dun. Again, take what Rowan Williams said about Sharia law completely out of context. On the Quran, again, presenting this notion that Muslims are always bloodthirsty and want to go kill everyone. Muslim dress code, the clash in Britain, USA Today. Again, this is this kind of notion that what's played on here is, look, these Muslim troublemakers, let alone our laws, they can't even abide by school rules on dress code. The Israel-Palestine conflict. This kind of, again, what's the images that are portrayed, that Muslims as a whole have this fascination, this obsession, and their aspirations are to be suicide bombers. I know there's a credit crunch, but if you're really short for money, the best way to make money is claim that you're Muslim, apostatize, and then write a book. Books on Islam, the infidel. If you go to Amazon, remember what we said about 6% actually find out about Islam via the internet on Amazon. The top-selling book, The Infidel, by Aaron Hersey Ali. And you know, it's a shame that I'm actually advertising, giving her free advertisers. I wouldn't really do that, but okay, what can we do? Films, again. What are the alternatives? We have a film called The Obsession, Radical Islam's War Against the West. Documentaries. Gert Wilders, I'm sure you're familiar with them, I'm not going to go through details, and he produced a documentary called Fitna. So, are Muslims the new blacks? Why do I say that? Well, the reason I want to, just food for thought, is that I came across the discourse of a man called Sam Dickinson, from the White Pride world, to White Pride Worldwide. And there was some kind of interesting similarities between what he says and his type of discourse and Gert Wilders. So let's put them side by side. Sam Dickinson says, I don't hate black people, I just want to hold my opinions and be able to talk about them. Gert Wilders says, I don't hate Muslims, I hate Islam. Sam Dickinson also says, I'm not a racist. I don't believe in hurting black people, as if that's even a question. I just believe in protecting the great culture my people have built. What does Gert Wilders say? He says, Islam's not a religion, it's an ideology of the retarded culture. Another quote that I think would be interesting to look at, it says, the Muslim problem is an important one. How we deal with the enemy within will have momentous and long-term consequences for race relations in this country for many years. Who said that? Kilroy Silk. It's a shame because I actually liked this program, but never mind. I also came across this 1938 Nazi propaganda. And what it says a bunch of post-Jews, still kaftan wearers, and now in the West, European garb, ready to steal into Western civilization. And then I found this quote from Melanie Phillips. And she says, we have a fifth column in our midst, thousands of alienated young Muslims, most of them born and bred here, but to regard themselves as an army within, are waiting for an opportunity to destroy the society that sustains them. We now stare into abyss, aghast. So, the summary from these channels of TV and newspapers presents Islam as monolithic, disloyal, incapable with the Western values, violent and unreasonable. Muslims are seen as all the same, essentially different from non-Muslims, morally and culturally inferior to non-Muslims. They're a threat to non-Muslims, and there is no possibility of Muslims and non-Muslims living together, working cooperatively together, either in the world at large or within our European societies. Now, what I'd like to do is give you a little bit of an experiment for you to do at home. When you go home, just go onto Google, where it says images, and type in Muslim woman. And these are the images that you'll get. There. Basically, a disproportionate number of images showing Muslim women in niqab. Now, how many Muslim women are there that wear niqab on a regular basis that we see walking on the streets of London? I think a survey was conducted recently and only 2% of Muslim women in this country wear the niqab. And that's probably the same for the world at large. And the kind of images that we have of Muslim women are very this kind of Orientalist type, the seductive eyes, and the other contrast is the definition of a liberated Muslim is a woman who wears a bikini. Now, what are the consequences? What are the consequences of such, let's say, portrayal, disproportionate negative portrayal of Muslims? The Home Office figures in 2007 show that the Asians were twice as likely to be stabbed or bottled than a decade ago. In 2004, a study by the Islamic Human Rights Commission found 80% of respondents had suffered discrimination compared to 35% and 45% in 1990 and 2000 respectively. So, fact or fiction? Do these images really represent what Muslims are about? Well, let's find out. A poll was conducted to find the attitudes of Muslims in London compared to the views of all Londoners. Nearly all Muslim Londoners surveyed, 96% think that everyone should respect the law in Britain, virtually the same as the number of Londoners as a whole at 97%. The overwhelming majority of Muslims polled, 89% believe that everyone in Britain should be free to live their lives as they want, so long as they do not prevent others from doing the same. Again, virtually identical to Londoners as a whole, where the figures were 88%. The overwhelming majority of Muslim respondents, 94%, also believe that everyone in Britain should have equal opportunities, as does 92% of Londoners as a whole. Almost 9 out of 10 Londoners and Muslims, 90% and 88% respectively, agree that people should have a voice in politics through democracy. So it's very, very different from what the media are portraying. I've got together some images of what I think what British Muslims or Muslims look like. And on the far left we have a columnist, a female columnist, who's smiling, severity, and she writes for a Muslim lifestyle magazine. In the middle, we have Allah Made Me Funny, and yes, Muslims can joke and smile as well. Next to them, we have 2 new converts to Islam. And next to those two, we have James Khan, a successful businessman. Here, just over there, we have a genius child, a Muslim genius child. And next to the genius child, we have a female Muslim police officer. They can arrest people, but they can't cut hair. Next to her, we have Sami Yusuf, who's a writer and a very prominent singer, a very successful singer and writer. Next to him, the lady who's a BBC reporter. And also amongst there we have intellectuals, writers, and so forth. And even Muslim women, you can see at the far bottom, go swimming. So I think that's all from me. Thank you very much.